Good morning, everyone. This is our second tutorial, and this is Miss Rakel. Today we will discuss figurative language in relation to paradox and rhetorical question. Therefore, our objective for today is to understand and to identify a paradox and a rhetorical question within the context of a text or a paragraph to be able to explain their meaning. As we have previously covered in class, we have different types of figurative language. Let's recap some of them. Simile is a comparison of two unlike things sharing a common trait using a word of comparison, such as similar to, the same as, etc. Metaphor is the same as simile, where we have a comparison of two unlike things sharing a common trait but without using a word of comparison. Personification is when the writer gives human qualities, feelings, or characteristics to non-humans. Hyperbole is an exaggerated statement. Understatement is the opposite of hyperbole, where the writer uses gentle words to describe what is dramatic, violent, or shocking. Irony, as we have previously explained in the first tutorial, is a situation or spoken words that are opposite to what is expected. We have three types of irony: verbal irony, situational irony, and dramatic irony. Now that we know different figures of speech, let's remind ourselves of how to answer questions related to figures of speech. Remember that the question about figures of speech can be general, such as find or identify a figure of speech in the text or in a paragraph, or it can be more specific, where the question asks you to find a specific type of figure of speech in a paragraph or in a text. Therefore, it is important to remember that when we are asked to answer questions about figures of speech or figurative language, we need to be able to identify or to locate the figure of speech in a text or a paragraph, be able to identify the type of this figurative language, then identify or explain the meaning, and then focus or explain the purpose and the function. Let's keep in mind that the meaning of a figure of speech is different than the purpose or the function. How is that? When we are asked about the meaning of figures of speech, we are asked about the surface meaning, or why is this a statement, this type or specific type of figure of speech. However, when we are asked about purpose or function, then we are asked about the underlying meaning or the deep meaning of the statement. This means we're not only explaining the surface meaning, but focusing on the message that the writer wants to give or has in mind by using this figure of speech. Now, read the example given in the chart to see how what we have explained about answering questions related to figurative language is applied. In addition to the figurative languages that we have discussed before, we also have a paradox. Let's have a look at the two examples given, and then try to conclude what a paradox is. Example number 1. Some of the biggest failures I have ever had were successes. Example number 2. War is peace, freedom is a slavery, ignorance is a strength. Looking at these two examples, we can say that a paradox is a figure of speech in which a statement appears to contradict itself, that is a self-contradictory statement that is opposite to common sense, but has some reality. This type of statement can be described as paradoxical. If we look at the first example, we can see that it is opposite to common sense to believe that some biggest failures can lead to successes. However, if we reread the sentence and think about the meaning, we can see that it has some profound reality in it. We will have a closer look at other two examples of paradox with explanation. Example 1. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. Explanation. This statement seems to not make any sense. However, on closer examination, it becomes clear that the writer points out a political truth. The government claims that everyone is equal, but it has never treated everyone equally. It is the concept of equality stated in this paradox that is opposite to the common belief of equality. Example number 2. The child is father of the man. Explanation. This statement has a seemingly incorrect supposition, but when we look deep into its meaning, we see the truth. The poet is saying that the childhood experiences become the basis for all adult occurrences. The childhood of a person shapes his life and consequently creates fathers, the grown-up adult. So, the child is the father of the man. Another type of figurative language is rhetorical question. A rhetorical question is a figure of speech in which the person who is asking the question is trying to make a point. He or she is not interested in getting an answer to the question, since the question is clear and does not need an answer. The function of a rhetorical question is to lay emphasis to the point or to use as a stylistic device to persuade the reader. Remember that you can use rhetorical question at the beginning of your introduction in order to attract the reader. We will have a look at the 3 examples given and discuss how rhetorical questions are used. Example 1. 2 men are having a disagreement. One says, "Do you want me to punch you in the face?" This is a rhetorical question because it does not need an answer. The obvious answer to that is no. Example 2. A woman tells her husband she is pregnant and shows him the pregnancy test. He says, "Are you serious?" This emphasizes his surprise at the news. Example 3. A child is asking for a very expensive toy. His parents say, "Do you think that money just grows on trees?" This question is a rhetorical question because the parents do not expect an answer. However, they use this question to show that the child should stop and think about how things are paid for. For homework and practice on the figurative languages explained, please refer to the pages assigned and to the exercises given.